And obviously here I'm talking about your FormulaE journey, which fundamentally, I've been seduced by.
And we go green in Cape Town.
The necessity and the need for climate finance and climate-oriented initiative.
Yes.
And then sport business.
And I'd lost a fortune, frankly. My brain shut down. I literally, for 18 months, could hardly hold a conversation.
Wow.
I lost my foreign languages. I speak German, I speak a little bit of French and Italian, I speak Afrikaans. I could speak none of those. And I maybe had 20% recall of the English language.
In the first race, you had over 20,000 participants. One race of the year.
It did indeed.
Across FormulaE platforms.
One day I'll write a book and it'll be titled Failing to Succeed. I just needed Africa. I mean, it was great. It's a magnificent place. Everything's being done. I needed a bit more of the soul that Africa offers.
Amen.
I mean, power should be a human right. That microgrid stuff is power for Africa. Literally.
Welcome in the Valley. I'm your host today and my name is Ibrahim Sanya. We have an amazing show today, but before that, a gentle reminder. Press that subscribe button, join the community of funders and founders, changing sports, tech, entertainment and fashion from Africa to the rest of the world. And never miss a thing. Enjoy the show.
My brother, my friend, so good to have you here.
A great honor to be on your podcast. Thank you, Ibrahim.
The pleasure and honor and privilege is mine, my friend. So, the late Steve Jobs used to say, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. You must trust in the process, in the journey, that they will eventually connect. Your life is full of those dots. Why don't you tell me about the different dots that made you who you are today, a true legend? But take us dot after dot, please.
That's very kind. Well, firstly, I agree with Steve Jobs completely. Secondly, I would say there's a wonderful analogous comparison, which is when you pass, and if there is a tombstone or a memory of the person that has passed, there are two dates: the day you enter the world and the day you leave. Those are the only certain things, ultimately.
Yes.
But in between, there's a little dash, which represents your lifetime. And the dash is what you need to make sure you make the most of. It's a different way of expressing this.
Mm-hmm.
So my dots have been a very interesting, exciting journey, driven by lots of energy, which I'm blessed to have.
To still have a lot of. Because yesterday you did a race, and then on Sunday you did a bike ride with 4 generations of you. Your father, who's 91, you, your son, who's 37?
34.
34?
Yes.
And your grandson, that's 12.
11.
11. Wow. So clearly the energy ain't stopping anytime soon. Just checking by Dad.
Yeah. Well, what a privilege to be able to ride with your 90-year-old father and your 11-year-old grandson and your son as well, 79 years in between. It's extraordinary. Those are some of the dots we're talking about. And we rode 109 kilometers in the Cape Town Cycle Tour. It's the largest timed bicycle event in the world, beautifully organized. It's a stunning event. And my son, myself, and my grandson did virtually no training at all. My father trained very, very hard. And perhaps some inspiration for your listeners, he had a terrible fall exactly 2/3 into the race, went down at about 35 kilometers an hour onto the tar. I stopped. I was ahead of him. I ran back. I thought he was gone. He was knocked out. Took about 5 to 10 minutes to get some movement out of him. Got him up. I was absolutely convinced he had to have broken bones, broken shoulder, arm, which was under him. Miraculously, he was able to get up. He had a lot of cuts and blood pouring all over the place. And we started trying to clean him up. And all he could think about was getting back on the bike. And
Man.
an ambulance arrived, and the 2 medics took him into the ambulance, and they spent 15 minutes treating him, treating the wounds. And I knocked, and they opened, and I said, "How's he doing?" They said, "We can't believe it. His vitals are 130/80 for his blood pressure, which is exactly spot on of what it should be.
Wow.
His pulse, his heartbeat, 62 beats per minute after 3 hours of cycling.
Wow.
And his oxygen level was 96, ultimately 99. But I mean, perfect.
Wow.
So I said, "So you're saying the vitals are fine?" They said, "Yes." And no broker, come on the bike. 2 more hours, we got finished. It was just
Beautiful.
spectacular. And of course,
Spectacular.
he's hurting like crazy now. But those war wounds are things that we'll be able to talk about.
Wow, 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 wow. So clearly the inspiration for the superpower you've had to cross those dots come from that. Now run us through the dots one by one. I understand that actually a lot of things started around here in Rosebank.
Yes. So very quickly, born in Johannesburg, moved to Cape Town at a young age, came back to Johannesburg a bit for school, finished in Cape Town, went to university in Cape Town, and then had a 2-year compulsory army we had to do. Mm-hmm. It was mandatory, it was conscription, and it was hardcore, but it was brilliant. And, you know, some things, I say brilliant because there was a lot of physicality and I love sport, and so it was a challenge, and I was determined to prove. Wasn't brilliant for a lot of the people who we helped. So we'd run, and then I'd stop and help the guys at the back, and it was a real learning to see the raw side of human nature. But I think it is exactly what young people who are not sure what to do need. Some discipline.
Absolutely. Which is lacking a lot today.
Lacking a lot today. So I was all for it, not for the regime, of course, but for the concept of good physical for your kids, get them going, give them some purpose, give them some discipline. I think it's really important. When that all finished, I went back to university here in Wits, and I met Gary Player's son. Gary is a famous golfer, one of the top 3 historically. There's now, of course, the Tiger Woods and others, but Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and Gary Player were known as the big 3. He's a South African, but he made it on the global stage, won 9 major championships, came second 9 times. Anyway, his son and I started trading as students on the stock exchange, taking way too much risk on buying and selling stuff you could buy and only pay 7 days later. So we would trade, and once got into a bit of trouble, needed my brother to help me settle. But then I wanted to start a sports marketing company. I'd grown up in the world of sport. And so I did.
Which year was this?
1986.
Wow.
Just the other day. And funny enough, we're sitting in Rosebank in this beautiful studio you're using, and it is 2 kilometers from here that we were at Santon, initially Santon City, and then 66 Rivonia Road. And for a year, my focus was on what I called creating IP in sport. I didn't want to manage third-party rights.
Okay.
So, for example, managing something that the IOC owns, managing something that FIFA owns, that's wonderful, and you can do great business, but they're not yours. You're not building value. And I, for whatever reason, at a young age, had this drive.
Wow.
So I launched something initially called the Nixdorf Executive Triathlon Relay. And the reason I did that, back then, Liberty Life, which is an insurance company here in South Africa, had a very big run, but it was a relay of 8 runners that ran 5 kilometers each, and companies entered it. It was a company relay, and it had a very big 20,000 people participating.
Wow,
it was amazing, and it was a big thing. So I thought, well, you know, companies, you've got a swimmer, you've got a cyclist, you've got a runner. And I can't say it today, but I said it back then. And you've got the big fat person in the office who can be the manager.
Yes.
To help and sort and plan. And it worked beautifully. And that was ours. We owned it. So that started that. Then started, we have in South Africa, people are long distance crazy. They do these runs, the Comrades Marathon, the Two Oceans Marathon.
Like legendary.
Huge. People come from all over the world.
I have friends that, when I lived in Nigeria, we were part of a running club called Road Warrior. So you had obviously those that were not fast runners. In fact, we all got the title. I was one of them, called Johnny Walkers.
Yes.
Because you're clearly not going fast enough.
Yes.
So they had to give you a cool label to put color into your lack of performance. And then you had the Comrades. That was like the upper class. They were the one that would fly down here. And I think out of 200 people, there was usually like 6 or a small number. So they're basically the elite force.
That's it. And then a chap called Mike Liamhace and I conceptualized this, and we came up with a scoring where we chose 9 ultra-distance events, and you had to do 7 in 1 year. And we were amazed. 2,000 people entered. And again, we owned it. We got Guy, who just launched Emil Gel to sponsor it.
Okay.
And I discovered a chap called Nick Bester who ended up winning the Comrades Marathon. No one had ever heard of him. I ended up managing him. So I did all these sorts of things.
Amazing.
I was in business, as I mentioned, with Gary's son. We had very different views on business. And so I was going to leave. I was going to sell my interest after 1 year because I didn't see us doing this together forever. And then Gary, player who called me his third son back then, said, Iain, I want to do more golf courses. And he used to do them in partnership with designers. I would like to set up a design company. So we founded a design company that we owned, a chap called Phil Jacobs, myself, and again, Gary's son. And then we were joined by Owen Bloomberg, who was our lawyer, a year later. And for 7 years, I ran that business, and we sold golf course contracts all over the world, including in Egypt, in your beautiful country.
Wow, all the way in Egypt. Amazing.
At a time when south of Hurghada, it was just desert, where they used to run military drills, and there was this Zen-like silence, I remember, on the Red Sea. It was incredible. So one of the most Zen places I've ever been to.
Yeah, guys, amazing.
Unbelievable.
Amazing.
And that's built. We built it for Waggy Hanna and Farid Saad.
Wow.
Who were
amazing.
our clients, yeah.
So it's amazing that from here you got yourself all the way to Egypt for golf.
Yes, we did amazing projects in Taiwan. I'll never forget signing a contract as a 25-year-old for $1 million in 1988 with Victor Chen of Papin Corporation. I had Victor on my right, the mayor on my left, or I was on the mayor in the middle. Let's say I was on his left, Victor on his right, a youngster. Wow. In Taipei City, it was amazing, and we ended up building that, and another one in Taiwan, and we did Chateau Golf de Tolan in France in the Var, beautiful, stunning, for Sergio Camaletto and Mario Contini. We did Clubs Dardin in Sevilla in Spain, so everything outside of America. We also in South Africa did a project called Leopard Creek, which is known as the Augusta for the golfers out there of Africa.
Yes.
And our client was Johan Rupert, who's one of the great industrialists in the world, really, but certainly in the continent, Wow. And I developed a relationship with Johan, and I took my wife, Kim, we've been married for 35 years.
Congratulations.
And thank you. 2 beautiful children, and now 3 grandchildren, with a 4th coming.
Wow.
We'll talk about that. But I dragged Kim, who had a career. She was the biggest selling artist in South Africa in the mid-'80s.
Okay.
And the fascinating thing, her stage name in the black community was Margino. Oh. But in the white community, remember, there's this terrible separation back then. She was Kim Kallie. And she was the lead in Evita, for example. And before that, the mistress in Evita on stage. But she has 5 platinum albums. She covered Madonna at a time when Madonna wouldn't release her material in this country. But the publishing rights were available. So she was put into a studio and covered Holiday, for example. Holiday. And then Last Night a DJ sang that.
Wow, amazing.
These things just took off.
I can only imagine.
Here's this white Zimbabwean girl in the townships in 1985 in Soweto at the Rose Bowl at Jabulani Stadium. 30 to 40,000 people. She's the headliner of these festivals.
Amazing.
And boom, they're going crazy over Mudge, as they called it, Margina. Sold up into Africa too. Maybe some of the listeners, she gets a lot of requests from France now people trying to collect vinyl of the Margino albums.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is the magic couple right there. The husband is doing culture golf court, and then the wife is filling up stadiums.
Exactly.
And these are serious numbers. It's like that's like 4 times the size of what we're doing now, filling the basketball stadium in Sunbet.
Yeah. No, it was remarkable. And really remarkable if you consider politically where South Africa was at.
Yes, yes.
You know, it was amazing. Anyway, we were in London. I decided for the design company we should be there. And frankly, it didn't work for us as a family. And I made the right decision to sell my interest in the business because we owned the company. We paid Gary a royalty. And we came back to South Africa, and I wrote to all of our clients, including Johan Rupert. And he said to me, come and chat. And he offered me the job to be the sponsorship director for the group companies worldwide.
Oh, congratulations.
So at that stage, it included what was known as Rembrandt in South Africa, which was the tobacco business. I looked at strategies for all the brands in the group. And if I may say, there were 2 things that we did that I initiated, which turned out very well. One was advertising had been banned. We were one of the first countries in the world where advertising. Dlamini Zuma was the health minister, very close to the Health Council, the World Health Organization, and she banned it, and it meant there was no ability to communicate. And what people didn't realize was all that did was make the tobacco companies more profitable. Because all the money they spent on communication and marketing and fighting with each other for market share just dropped to the bottom line.
Wow.
But I looked at it and I said, look, in fact, initially it was Johan Rupert's brother, Antonio, who sadly passed away, who's offered us the opportunity with a band called UB40 to sponsor them. It was very late in the day, and I took it over, said, let's just trial this because maybe music is the thing we should be doing for the next 5 years. And we did that. In the end, I went with a strategy, and I said, let's set up a promotions company that's independent of tobacco, called it In Concert Entertainment, partnered with a gentleman called Ati van Wyk, who is South Africa's top impresario. And we did 26 stadia tours, including the likes of Phil Collins, Tina Turner, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard. We did a beautiful Soul Invasion tour with Kool and the Gang featuring J.T. Taylor,
amazing,
Randy Crawford, and the Stylistics. That was really, really special.
Amazing.
We had the Chemical Brothers. We had a lot of stuff. And then we got stopped because that was acting as a production house. We filmed it, etc. And for 5 years, we had the exposure. And after 5 years, the brand had doubled its market share. And there was no other form of communication. So it went from the number 1 brand to the completely dominant brand. So I'd like to think when the business got merged with BAT, it carried a lot of value from that. Launched with Trevor Phillips, who was then the CEO of the PSL, the Premier Soccer League, a competition called the Rothmans Cup. It was the richest soccer competition in Africa. R1 million.
Wow. Was
First prize.
Wow.
Which back then, now it's nothing. But then it was mega. And again, that really created some impetus.
And those were always local teams.
Those were here in South Africa.
Amazing.
Then internationally, Rothmans sponsored Formula 1. We sponsored the Williams team. I oversaw that. Damon Hill was world champion in 1996. Spent 5 years in the Formula 1 world, got to know the personalities from Bernie Ecclestone to Frank Williams to Patrick Head to Eddie Jordan and others very, very well. Talking of the dots, that's laying a foundation, isn't it? And
sure.
and eventually, the tobacco stuff came to an end, and I focused on the luxury goods side. And my job was to work on communication strategies, essentially below the line for brands. But I also focused on a couple of special startups, which were projects that either Johan had ideas about or I pushed for and we did together. One such project was the founding of what is today the Alfred Dunhill Links in Scotland. I inherited the Dunhill Cup, which was owned by IMG. And after some years, I'd said to Johan, we're getting gouged. We should own it ourselves. Going back to the dots. My belief, we should own our own own IP. And he agreed, and he had the idea of a Pro-Am format, and I named it the Dunhill Links.
Amazing.
And I said, everyone has to pay. So no more freebies. Golfers, come for $5 million prize, pay for the money, play for the money, you pay for your hotel, we're not paying for flights. They were all used to being taken care of. Bit of a gamble. And then we introduced the amateur element, which was you had to pay $7,500 back then. We changed it to euros later, and it's gone up since, for amateurs to play. And that in the first few years was not easy because people, chairman of companies, CEOs, you got to cut a check. Today, the subscription, if you're lucky to get an invite, 80% positive response, and it's an incredible audience that attends.
Wow.
It's the home of golf. It's a magnificent location.
Congratulations.
And then Johan, in the early 90s, had an idea of a World Oscars of sport.
Okay.
And we spoke about it. I met with him on the 27th of April, 1994, about the job, because I was joining, to get a briefing. I was starting on his birthday on the 1st of June. And he brought up this World Sportsman of the Year. So first thing I said, what about a World Sportswoman of the Year? Say jokingly, oh, no, this is about the World Sportsman. And I said to him after a while, I don't think it'll work. I said, I'll think about it. And I said, you're going to just need lots of money to support it. And I don't think on its own it'll work. Anyway, 4 years later, there was cause to come back around the idea. And I left and I went through, it was an iterative process, but working out how we could do things differently. So the first thing was, if you're going to have an award show, I said, you have to remove the politicians, the technocrats, the administrators out the way. You need athletes judging athletes. It's the only chance you're going to have of securing the interest of the current athletes. So I came up with the idea of creating an academy of legendary sportsmen and women to be our electoral college.
Amazing.
But then working with a fantastic organization called Good Business, Giles Gibbons and his partner Steve, we came up with Sport for Good. And that was to be our soul of the organization, which was to not promote excellence in performance in sport, but to use sport as a trusted environment to address social issues in communities, supported by visits from the academy who bring profile, etc. And it was still, I said, we've got a tripod. The awards on their own, a single stake you can knock over easily. Tripod's a lot more steady. I said it's still a big ask because we're taking on the big federations. Who are we? Somehow I managed to con 43 sportsmen and women who were major names in the world, from the Michael Johnsons and Martina Navratilovas and Kapil Devs and Ian Bothams and
Amazing.
To come on board, Sebco and
Give the
Viv
world
Richards.
what they don't know that they need yet.
Exactly.
And then
And
they follow.
then we supported Sport for Good. And just yesterday, you saw I was partaking in, here in South Africa, we have 26 projects. And it's amazing. I've watched it happen. It's just incredible. Virtually every project is driven by a remarkable human being who's made it their lives to change communities. And they come from all over the world. And they find communities, they fall in love with the communities, and they want to make them right. And we found that with all of the IP that we've developed, around how the social sport for development, how you use sport as a tool to motivate children, but also to get their trust. It's very, very powerful. We now have 300 projects globally.
Wow.
And we've raised over 250 million euros.
Wow.
Over 5 billion rand since we started from an idea.
Fantastic.
And it's really meaningful work. I am humbled by it because it started with an idea. The awards were Johan's idea. I had Sport for Good and the Academy. That's, and of course there's a team. There's always a team you build and you get them on board, and I'm able somehow to get people infected with enthusiasm around what we're doing. And we had a great team at Laureus. And today we have 300 ambassadors and 71 academy members who are the biggest names in world sport who support Laureus.
This was what year? The birth year for sports was
So it was born on the 21st of May, 2000 in Monaco, in the presence of the great Madiba, Nelson Mandela.
Wow, amazing. That is priceless.
I can share that story.
Please tell us a bit. Give us a stand-up.
Well, Johan had arranged for Madiba to come. His PA right-hand, wonderful lady, Zelda Lagrange. I dealt with Zelda. They were in Washington on a speech. And I thought we'd worked up something quite special. And he arrived, and we had nobody knew he was coming. We kept it really locked up. And he came in to do a rehearsal, and the teleprompts were quite small, much smaller, frankly, than they should have been. But that was 24 years ago. He was having difficulty reading. So on the night, he went off script. Before I tell you what he said, we had in the morning, before the awards, the founding meeting of the Academy. And we had 29 of the Academy present. And I'd arranged for him to meet Sugar Ray Leonard, because he was a pugilist. He was a boxer.
Yes.
And then to meet Sly Stallone, to talk Rocky boxing. And then finally he wanted to meet Naomi Campbell at the end, because he treated her as his granddaughter. And as we finished up, well, firstly, he came into the meeting, at the Academy meeting. We were having a session, and Johan left the room. And I said to everybody, just a moment, please, I've got to go to the door. And we'd set it. And I opened the door, and Madiba walked in. Wow. And he said, you are my kings and my queens. He said, it would be my honor to polish your shoes. It's incredible. And people were just blown away, of course, by the man's present stature. Extraordinary.
He's amazing.
And then I had the privilege of introducing each of them to him. But in that process, suddenly I realized, goodness, where is Ray Leonard? He was meant to be here. He's not here. So I started making alternative arrangements. But we found him. He had a big night at Jimmy's, the discotheque in Monaco. But Ray's such an elegant man. When we finally, the security guys got in the room, it was 1 minute to 11. We were meant to see Madiba at 11. And he looked immaculate, irrespective. He was asleep in his clothes. He came with me and he said, oh my God, he said, I've kept the most important man in the world waiting. I said, Ray, I've got good news for you. He said, what's that? I said, he's also the most forgiving man in the world. So you'll be okay. I took them up. They had their time. And then I took up Sly Stallone, and they had their time. And then Naomi had asked me, she said, do you mind if I bring somebody? It sounds like I'm really names dropping. It's all true. And I said, sure, who's that? She said, Bono. So I said, okay.
Wow,
so
cool.
Bono arrived, took them up. There's a very famous picture of Bono and Madiba on the balcony with a peace sign.
Peace sign, yeah.
That was at our event.
Wow, great job.
That night, he stood up and he said, sport is the power to change the world. It can unite nations in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. It is more powerful than governments will ever be in bringing about change. Sport has the power to change the world. And that became our mantra for Laureus. That blessed us. That blessed Laureus right there. I remember Gianni Mello from Gazzetta dello Sport as a senior journalist saying, my God, Ian, you don't understand how powerful this is, you know.
Wow, no, that's
that was
phenomenal.
Very, very special.
Wow. I got a chance to meet him twice, actually. He was the chairman of the board of my employer at the time. So 99 to 2005, he was the chairman, and President Cyril Ramaphosa was our vice chairman. The company was called Emerging Capital Partner. But what I distinctively cannot forget, I have like 2 pictures with him, is that at the board meeting, he would actually shake the hand of everybody that's there. And, you know, people will tell you that, you know, these illustrious leaders, they give them talking points. But, you know, I met him the first time, he asked me a few questions. Once I said I was from Senegal. And it was amazing that a year later, the next board meeting, it's like,
a friend from Senegal.
I'm from Senegal. And then he asked me about my parents and something specific I told him. And I was like, there's no way that his aides
briefed,
were, this has to be memory. And irrespective of what the truth is, that becomes the highlight of your life.
No question.
For that board meeting. Nothing else matters. And it follows you for life, forever. Just amazing to see just the power of one man lives in humanity forever.
Extremely special.
What I find amazing in your account with the dots is that there is a thesis that as humans we evolve by 7-year buckets. But the last set of 7 tends to be anchored around giving back for at least most of people that are normal human and phenomenal human. And I can see definitely the dot pivoting in your accounts, that everything starts becoming about giving back to the community and building systems to give back faster and further.
Yes.
And what I distinctively notice is even in your new aspect, your new journeys, still around sports, because that seems to be the constant. It's always business of sports in your life to be the big thematic. That there is component that you've made sure to inject. And obviously here I'm talking about your FormulaE journey, which fundamentally, I've been seduced by for multiple reasons, not only because it's fast car, but I think that there's very few things in our lives today that marry so well the necessity and the need for climate financing and climate-oriented initiative, and then sport business. Yes. So tell us how, within this phase of your life, you got into that opportunity.
Today's episode is sponsored by Statement. Statement is a media company focused on editorial coverage and market analysis of the African entertainment industry. Its production arm builds a pipeline for African women filmmakers. Magic Johnson, Samuel L. Jackson, and Latanya Richardson Jackson are among the investors that support the Statement's mission. We are big fans.
What I realized, and as I said, it was iterative. We don't have time where I could unpack how we got there, but it taught me that you can put purpose at the center of a business and be successful. But sustainability of those initiatives is tough. Mm-hmm. You've constantly got to be relying on others for money. Mm-hmm. But if you can build ecosystems that allow you to carry that purpose and to be impactful, that are self-funding, that's what I believe is the ultimate goal. And absolutely, for many years, my wife keeps reminding me that I do a lot of work for no pay. But it's my joy. It fills my soul. And I'm so happy to be able to do that. Amen. So the journey with FormulaE, just if I may say, it sounds like I've had lots of successes. One day I'll write a book and it'll be titled Failing to Succeed.
Beautiful. You have to patent that, because if you don't,
somebody else will take it.
I'll be the first one to take it.
Because I've tried a lot of things that haven't worked. Yeah. When I came back, so I made a decision that living in Europe, I just needed Africa. I mean, it was great. It's a magnificent place. Everything's being done. I needed a bit more of the soul that Africa offers. Amen. And no finer place for me, having grown up in Cape Town, than in Cape Town itself, where things actually run beautifully. And, we have a combination of Africa with some very first world environments, and nothing wrong with that. We love that. But having returned, I looked at what I was doing, and I took on an investment in a real estate program that, by all accounts, should have been a massive success. Something I did learn is that we had huge issues getting the development rights that we were after. I was wanting to build a private golf course and 200 development opportunities on 1,200 acres, 478 hectares. Beautiful land outside Cape Town. We bought the land, or the first half of it, from Anglo American, which was then the biggest company in South Africa. And come 2006, we hadn't got our rights, and we didn't have to buy the balance. But we were so passionate about doing this. We did it, and we did it with debt. The first half we had paid with equity, thinking that the market was on such a wild up as it was in 06. Then the crash of 08 came along. And we were sitting with a pile of debt with interest of 11% a year, compounding. And I had to dig deep, my partners and I, it wasn't just me, there were 4 of us involved. And I'd lost a fortune, frankly, of cash that had gone in plus opportunity cost. Then I had to liquidate blue chip stocks to fund the bank back, etc. Because the one thing we weren't going to do was go into liquidation. We were going to stand by what we were doing. Got through it. It was tough.
Fantastic.
So that was a mighty challenge, but I learned a lot from it. Then, inexplicably, in April of 2015, my brain shut down. I literally, for 18 months, could hardly hold a conversation.
Wow.
I lost my foreign languages. I speak German, I speak a little bit of French and Italian, I speak Afrikaans. I could speak none of those. And I maybe had 20% recall of the English language.
Wow.
I spent 15 hours a day in bed, and I dropped 20 kilograms.
Wow.
And life was over,
This was
basically.
2012?
2015.
2015.
And that continued. I was in a mental hospital for a month while they tried to work out what was going on. They filled me with all sorts of revolting drugs that made me go delirious and strange. I didn't have the confidence to leave the little room I was sharing with another guy to go to the eating hall and have a meal because people would be around and I didn't know what to say. Can you imagine?
Wow. Amazing.
Fact.
Wow.
On the 6th of January 2017, a miracle happened because I woke up functionally at less than 1 out of 10. And I'd like to think I operate now at somewhere between 8 and 9. I was less than 1. I couldn't drive. I'd exited 6 businesses I was involved in, and my poor wife had to look after us. But I was like a child following her around, going to the shops, whatever. And petrified to see anybody. I wouldn't answer a phone call. No calls, no anything. There's no email. Forget it. I couldn't write an email.
Wow.
On the 6th of January, Sarah Page, our daughter, was out from London, said, Dad, let's try and have a little walk up Lion's Head in Cape Town, which I do a lot. I love it.
Yeah.
And I said, Pops, I called her Pops, I'm not sure, but let's go. So I started walking, and as I started walking, I could smell the fynbos. I'd lost, which is the natural plant of the fine bush.
Yes.
I'd lost my sense of smell and taste, but I suddenly could smell. I said, you can't believe it, I can smell. My hair was standing up. It stands up now when I talk about it. I ended up walking to the top of Lion's Head somehow. And I saw the ocean where I swim today, every day. I said, I have to go in the water. I couldn't, when I was ill, we have a pool at home. When I got in the pool, it felt like jelly. There was a physiological change. Something had disconnected in my whole system. And I got in the water afterwards. It felt incredible. Amazing. And then I went for a meal to a place called Hemelhuis, and I could taste the food. And then finally, sitting behind us, 2 guys were talking about a restaurant called HQ, the only thing I'd kept that I owned, which was a famous steak and chips restaurant like Entrecote in Paris. Or in,
yes.
And it was really popular in Cape Town in its day. And they had a great time. And I engaged with them. And she said, for 2 years, you haven't been able to do that. I said, I know. But that night I said to Kim, I think functionally I'm 4 out of 10. My brain is reconnected. She then fell over, I think, because she'd been holding it all together. She got encephalitis. She got sick. And she was going to take a trip with Sarah Page to Thailand for a girls' spa, fun, lovely retreat. And she said, why don't you travel with her? And the 2 of us flew to Indonesia, to Bali.
Bali is amazing.
Stunning.
I went there.
Went to the Gili Islands. We went to Gili Air. We did an advanced dive course. I had to fill out a medical questionnaire. And of course I'd said, no, it was fine, but it hadn't been. Did the advanced dive course over 5 days. And then sitting on the beach, I heard a German woman talking in German about the miracle that was the recovery of her own pain in her jaw that she had had for 6 years. And that Chukor de Gedi Rai, the last king of Bali's grandson, had treated her and she had had 15 seconds of agony, and she was clear. And for 6 years, she'd been on medication and stuff. And so I said, vielen Dank, aber diese Namen. Geht die schon, habt seine mobile number bitte.
I have to go.
I went the next day. We went back to the mainland, went to Ubud. You go sit, it's like a little temple. Sitting there, I had a few people, and when I went up, he didn't ask who I am. He's about 4'9", wizen, black hair. He was 82 at the time. And you lean with your back against his knees with your legs, and on my jaw, he started with tongue, and then he went colon, kidneys, then he came up to throat, tongue, and then he went brain, and he touched my temples. I promise you, I was screaming like a banshee immediately, screaming. By now there's about 50 people sitting there.
Wow.
And the orange linen shirt I was wearing turned into, it was wet immediately from the release of perspiration from the pain.
Wow.
I then lay down. He said, lie down. And he worked on my toes, and he did the same thing. And I think I levitated for the first time in my life when he got to brain. It was incredible. And then he said, okay. He arm wrestled me. He said, go. Paid 400 Rand, 20 euros.
Oh, my God.
$20. And in a little box.
Amazing.
And, I went back with the kids, and I won't go into that now. There's not time. But it was unbelievable. What I learned was, I had seen 7 different neurologists, and we're blessed to have incredible health care, actually both privately and publicly in some hospitals like Grooterschuur, the public health, Tygerberg are amazing. On the whole, we have real problems, but there's some standouts, training hospitals. Wow. But I went to these guys and girls, and they treated me like a fraud. They basically couldn't find anything. So they just said, they go into the depression box. That's all you're depressed. Of course you get depressed. If you're a high functioning person, you go, anyway.
Wow.
The point is, what I've realized is, if you can put it in a box in the West, the medicine's unbelievable what they can do. But if it's outside the box, you need Asia, you need the East, you need another, or maybe we need Africa. I don't know, but my experience was going east.
No. So many accounts on this. In fact, we would love to have you back on the show to just double click on this.
Yeah, sure.
One of the big thing I believe in is, the importance of wellness and being able to sit around the box, and often outside the box. Because at the end of the day, we tend to, a lot of the things that work for a while and end up not working, starting with science and logic, have the issue that makes them work being their limitation. And even if you take religion, any religion, what creates the discipline is often what creates the biggest error, which is that we try to restrict God into a place, a people, a group. Yeah. And the universe, God, is everywhere. The moment you decide to put a fence around it, him, her, that's when the errors start. Because that's what the power of it is, right? And the same with, and I think that's true for something as celestial as God, but it's also true in a lot of the discipline beliefs we take. The moment you try to just restrict it in the definition in the box, that's when you kind of imprison yourself. And medicine, clearly you can see that there's a lot of where you need to go traditional, Eastern, and so forth. So amazing.
You coming back to the purpose in business, so having failed with those initiatives that I spoke about, I was offered the opportunity by a partner of mine. He had heard about FormulaE potentially coming. He had a relationship with a group who were advising FormulaE. So I jumped in, looked at it, and thought, wow, this actually is interesting, because the world needs to change. It is changing. I'd worked very closely with Mercedes-Benz, and in the early 2000s had calls with the senior management to talk about the future of the automotive sector. And everybody, not only them, but all the big brands were very dismissive of this little startup called Tesla. no, they'll never make it. And people say,
Yes,
zero
yes,
chance.
yes.
And, and they underestimated
And
Elon
you're a
Musk.
South African brother.
Yeah, they really did. And anyway, it had sort of awakened me to the future of what might happen. Fast forward to 2019, when we looked at it, we got the support of the city of Cape Town and said, you can race on our streets. They didn't say we'll give you a big check, but they said we'll support you. So we went, we made a bid, secured the rights. But in doing that with my partners, I said, please understand that the race on its own, just like I said to you and Rupert about Laureus, will not work. It's too expensive for this country to carry it as a singular event. We need purpose in the middle of what we're doing. It presents us with an opportunity to create activities 12 months of the year that can build up to the race. And that's exactly what we've now done. 2 weeks ago, as you know, we had the second staging of one. Let's start at the beginning. I founded Go Green Africa with Neil out of Paris, who helped very much in the strategy of what it should look like. That is a not-for-profit, think of it as this tabletop, which brings large corporates together with technological solutions to assist them to go green and in their commitment to going green. It's not just we'll go green. How are you going to go green? Let's help you go green. We can talk for a long time about that. The 4 table legs now, one of them is Africa's Green Economy Summit. We need growth. Africa fortunately is rising. Different countries, I mean, we've got 54 countries, they're all very different. Some are doing better than others. A lot are doing better than others. So in South Africa, we're not doing well. We're politically constrained, frankly, because we have very weak leadership, calling it as it is. And without good leadership, no business, and we've got to think of a country as a business, succeeds. We should have a 5% growth rate, and I think we can get there within 6 months to a year with the right leadership, with the right levers, with the right... Anyway, Africa's green economy is all about connecting global capital with African green economy opportunity. At our stage, we had a pitch stage this year with 32 pitches, one of which, George from Nigeria, pitched Afrexim Bank, your old employer, and landed $600 million for his 4 new energy projects.
Superb.
AP3 significantly involved in the mix. And what a great start. That's 12 billion rand. We have so many conversations underway right now between the investor groups we had present and the pitch folks we had there. Combined with our plenary sessions, we had ministers from Cote d'Ivoire, the Minister of Environment, we had from Zambia, and we had from Uganda, all present, the ministers of the environment. We had big World Bank presence, and
IFC also
was there. AFC was there. You know, African Union came on board.
I think it was Zito from Afrexim.
That's exactly right.
Well,
you got it. And everybody loved it because it was so focused on its objective, which is capital going into projects, and we structured it as such. And I'm seriously believe my manifestation is that is going to become the mining Indaba of the green economy.
The green economy.
Your mining Indaba has, at the peak, it had 15,000 guests. Now it has 10 to 12,000. I think it's still huge. Hey, that's where we headed with what we've started. So that's one pillar. That's about driving Africa. Then we have a skills development pillar. In South Africa, we have a large automotive sector. 6% of our GDP is from the automotive sector, and about 12% by value of exports is from the automotive sector. It has to transform to e-cars, to EVs. And this, I don't see anybody creating skills amongst young people.
Correct.
So with Warwick University's Professor of Engineering, who's an amazing guy, he came out to the FormulaE race in Cape Town. And he and his race team said, we love the potential here. They committed to running a series of lectures. We have 9 universities on board and TVET colleges that are on our program now. And we hope over the next 3 years to educate 900 graduates in EVs.
Congratulations. Wow.
And those 9 universities, when we race again, those universities will each bring their car and compete against each other, not in the race, but for technology, innovation, So it's going to drive things. So we've got that piece. Then we have our showpiece, which is the Electric Festival. It runs adjacent to the race, and that is a B2C play showcasing all things E, cars, bicycles, one-wheelers, scooters. But it's more than that. We also showcase charging solutions.
Yes.
So
which
we
is a
had
big issue on the continent.
Big issue. And we had Eskom on board, and I got taken apart by the media. How can you have Eskom? They can't keep the lights on, and they now had an EV. I said, yeah, but not everybody in Eskom is a basket case. They're doing great work. Nick Singh and his team have built their microgrid technology. It's not Siemens or some big European company. It's right here, local. Built this amazing technology where right now they have 2 systems powering communities. So one in the Northern Cape, which is a long way from the grid. 55 homes are powered every day autonomously by this system.
Wow.
The total cost was 3.1 million rand. The on-grid connection would have cost 327 million rand.
Wow. That's
Less than
cost saving.
1%. And
Cost
those
savings
people have got dignity.
galore.
They can shower or bath with hot water or wash themselves with hot water. They can iron a shirt. They can wash their clothing. They can, power it should be a human right.
It's a human right.
It's happening. That microgrid stuff is power for Africa. Power for Africa. Literally. So that's come out of that. And so we have Eskom on board now, which is very exciting. And then the final leg is a fun marketing piece called the Electric Vehicle Road Trip, where 10 days before the race each year, we send 25 cars, EVs, from the north of the country down through the coast to showcase range anxiety.
Okay, so individuals.
It's journalists, it's social media, they're in the cars. The automotive sector's on board, and I came up with the idea we carry a green baton to represent new energy in the lead vehicle each day. And when we get to a township or a town or a city, we pick up a hero or heroes, and we put them in the car to carry the green baton.
Super.
We visit big industry that's polluting, and we hold their feet to the fire. We get them to sign up. And by the time 10 days later we roll into Cape Town, there's been a huge amount of media and excitement, etc. Finally, we run a regeneration challenge from the top of Signal Hill down to showcase how you regenerate power back into the battery in an EV. That's the magic sauce.
Wow.
Then those cars will go onto the famous unfinished flyover bridge and meet in one of the race cars, and that baton gets driven in and handed over to the Premier or the Mayor to open up the race weekend. Yeah.
Amazing.
So now we got a table. We've got 4 legs, we've got corporate engagement, and then we can race off the table or on the table because we have enough meat to offer up to our supporters, sponsors, government, all the different sectors, that this initiative is sustainable. So big purpose at the center, good business around it.
Fantastic. No, it's beautiful, and I love the thoughtfulness in putting the legs to hold the table firmly. In the first race, you had over 20,000 participants. It was all over the news. I also discovered that it won Race of the Year.
It did indeed.
Across FormulaE platforms.
Yes.
Tell us which were the sponsors you managed to get involved, because I know that the race is always sponsored title-wise by, I think it's ABB.
ABB, yeah.
But then you had an army of other very strong names.
So we didn't, in the sense that we had Uber as a partner, we had Eskom as a partner,
Fantastic.
but we didn't have time to put a commercial program in place. So we had to rely on a couple of things. One is revenue, where we sold out tickets, sold out. People didn't believe me. I said, set the price. Nobody believed. Sold 20,000 tickets for, nobody's ever heard of this.
Congratulations, sir.
Fortunately, we sold out. Sold out the hospitality. So all of that really went extremely well.
Okay.
The racing was magical. So the track, and we got the city finally to upgrade based on the layout, the street roads, so they were suitable. We had some amazing undertaking from De Silva, who won the race and did this incredible move twice before the race finished. And we were very privileged to be voted number 1 out of 17 races in our first year. And the funny thing is, I'd gone to FormulaE and I said, look, I promise you we can give you operationally a top race. Secondly, we'll give you a top 3 beauty and operationally. And thirdly, we've got no money. So just that, don't talk to me about your 15 million euro sanction fee, plus we've got to pay everything. And we've built a great relationship with the powers that be, but without their involvement and help, we wouldn't have got the first year done. They helped us to get there. And the city of Cape Town were amazing. The Western Cape government were amazing. They each put in some money. We had ETV came on board, took local rights, which was also cash generative. So now we have a strong model going forward. We know exactly what's required to make this tick for the next 20 years. Fantastic. And I'm really excited about it because we have built the table. We have the legs. Now we've just got to put the plates and knives and forks onto the table.
And we cannot wait to be one of the cooks in the kitchen with you. This is a project that we're fallen in love with and cannot wait to be your roommate in this journey.
The bed is ready, and we love that, and it's been a delight to connect. And I do need to, before we close up, go back to your question you asked earlier a little bit, and we'll do a deeper show perhaps. What do I do to stay sane? Because he said to me, I run this crazy schedule.
Yes. I mean, you schedule daily. Every time I feel bad about my schedule, I just need to speak to you, and I feel good.
So I had a back problem some years back, 4 years ago. And I'd been reading up about cold water swimming. Mm-hmm. Wim Hof. You've advised me and you've helped me in the beginning of this year when I was not
very sick for a month, probably COVID, but your intervention and advice. And the habit is still going on up to today.
Up to this day.
Shower every day.
Good man.
And the breathing, the app is on my phone. So I do it at night. I don't know when you do it.
Yeah.
But I do it before
morning or night or whatever. It's great.
Yeah, so I actually, when you told me first, I thought it would actually help you sleep. But I think like twice I've done it in the morning and it did help.
Lift you up.
Lift the energy up.
Yeah, it's good. So I continue every day. It is an absolute joy. I go to Clifton Beach mostly in Cape Town. It's anything from 8 to 14 degrees temperature-wise. Wow. 10 minutes of immersion. I have a workout routine in the water. I used to do an hour outside the water, functional training, and now do 10 minutes, but emerged. It works for me.
Wow,
and you know, I showered and shaved before I get to the sea. I either go in my little electric car, my Vespa. I then have a swim in the open shower at the beach, and I get dressed, and I'm on my off for a great coffee and the day. And I think it's what keeps me sane. And I do yoga and I do karate and I jump on a bicycle and ride the August cycle tour, the Cape Town cycle tour. It's very important to stay active, I think. And as I said at the very beginning, I'm blessed with lots of energy that I believe I get from my dad and my mum.
Wow.
And not everybody has that.
Yes.
But that's also the subject of something I was asked recently. I was interviewed about what's the magic of the mother city for me, of Cape Town. And I said, it's the quantum energy that emits from Table Mountain. And they looked at me and they said, really? I said, yes, it is the 6th largest source of natural energy. And people from up here, from up country, poo-poo it and say, oh, these Cape Townians are, shoe crazy people.
Yes.
There is natural quantum energy all around.
Energy.
And that's a whole new world that I'm discovering, and we started talking about. And we could talk more about that in due course.
We're going to have to do an episode just for that. It's going to be about natural energy, wellness, quantum energy. And obviously, one thing I'd love to do is, through our common friend, Manoj, there is Deepak.
Of course.
Deepak Chopra. And the amount of depth. So I attended during our board meeting in Dubai, session he had on quantum energy. And we had a conversation afterwards. The man, I cannot wait for you and him to sit down, discuss quantum. He's like, it's like putting a kid in water. He's like, and so much knowledge he has about it. And obviously the world is discovering increasingly. And obviously cannot wait to host you in Egypt, because the pyramid.
Absolutely.
I keep on telling people, there's a lot of places you need to go before you go away. But you have to see those pyramids for yourself. Absolutely. And then do some research to realize the depth of the science that it went for, and realize that if you take a line across the globe, that you'll find a few similar exact structures going all the way to Latin America.
That's right.
And Asia. And it's probably not accidental that they all follow the same line. And it'd be very strange for back in those days that a boat would have a GPS to know exactly where to land again to build the same structure. So definitely a lot of mysteries there that we'd love to continue to unravel with you.
Absolutely.
My dear friend, before we close, I always like to ask 2 to 3 questions, and you can answer them in the order you wish. One being, if you had a chance to speak to your 16-year-old, what would you say? The other being, we all run away from something and run towards another. And what are those 2 things for you? And then I'll keep the last one after you've answered these 2 questions.
Those are very challenging questions. There's so much to share with a 16-year-old. I'm a believer that with children, the mothers play such a significant role. Because as men often we're away. Now today women are away too. Yeah. But children need that parental guidance, and by the time they're 16, their characters have largely been formed. So, I mean, I'm all about living the life that you wish to live. Do not live a prescribed life. Yeah. Do not, as a 16-year-old, feel that you're beholden to go and do X, Y, Z because society expects it of you. Try and reach into your heart and find those things that truly move you. Because success is, unfortunately, I have a very controversial view. Personally, for 30 years, I felt America's in serious trouble. And the reason I say that is they are beholden to the dollar. And that's become the religion. And so family values and systems have collapsed completely. It's terrible. I mean, the whole, anyway, just success.
We're definitely doing 3 episodes.
Yeah. Success is about finding what makes you happy. Happiness is the ultimate definition of success. And if that makes you a busker on the street and you finish your day feeling filled and happy, hats off.
So be it.
You are more successful than a heck of a lot of very wealthy people out there. So it's a given you've got to be able to put food on the table. So I try and help a 16-year-old to believe in those things that they wish to pursue in their hearts rather than those that are prescribed. So that's the first question. The thing that I run away from, detailed administration. At the age of 40, up to then, I thought I had to be the accountant, I had to be the lawyer, I had a little bit of a skill set in those spaces that I could lean on. And then I realized that actually there are people who love doing that stuff. And not only do they love it, they're really good at it.
Yeah.
And if you can accept that you don't have to be good at everything, you focus on what you're good at, rely on them to help you with what you're not good. Man, you're empowered.
Magic happens.
Magic happens. Does that answer 2 of the questions?
That answers 2 of the questions. So the last question, you'll have to seek deep, because I cannot recall yet someone that went so vulnerable in the show, because you invited us into 2 deep experiences, at the very least, that were very vulnerable, from one of your lowest points, both physically and mentally, and the recovery you went through. So this point is another vulnerability. So you could be the one that don't have to answer it, but I'm still going to ask. Can you think on the spot what is the nicest thing someone has done for you? And that's, life has been long for you. You've had a lot of great competitive force giving to you. But try.
It's interesting. There is no doubt for me that one gets a huge amount more joy out of giving than getting.
That's why we tend to not remember it.
So as to things, it would be sort of natural kindness, I would imagine, rather than a physical anything. It's certainly not a physical anything. It would be an act of kindness. And I don't remember offhand what that would be, but I'll think for the next show, and I'll answer it then.
For the next episode, you have to answer.
Yes, it's a beautiful question, by the way.
It's a tough question, because, when you're so blessed like you have, or I have, or some of us have, it's very difficult to pinpoint. You tend to get the universe often working your direction, and you being less overwhelmed by challenge. And I think you can sense that about you. And when you go through those motions, keeping an accounting track of what has been the most profound is not easy.
Actually, it's come to me now, that session I had with Chakorde Rai, that has to be, it was a 5-minute intervention, and he was dealing on another level. And in our next session on wellness, we can talk about it, because I met people who had seen him, and I know what's happened to them as a consequence of seeing him.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Beautiful.
no, I think that is
The kindness.
We paid $20, but that's not a lot of money for that. It was incredible.
It's a good metric.
Special.
Because actually, when for me, it changed all the time, and I ask a few people, but the best measure, I think, is always to see what it costs the giver and see what it costs you to get it. So that often puts you in a place that is just paramount.
Well, there's no doubt that the most generous human being that I've ever had look after me and my family is my brother Shailendra Singh in India.
Oh, okay.
And you missed the opportunity, but there'll be others. Manoj made it. Shailendra is a remarkable, powerful human being. We'll get him onto a podcast for sure.
Wow.
Who is, my name is Iain Singh when I'm there.
Yes, I saw on the pictures.
Yes, and he's provided the most amazing experiences. And I think my final word for this show is, and I learned this from my wife, we have to continue making beautiful experiences, because ultimately those are the measurements of your life. What have you done? What have you achieved? What have you enjoyed? Even the tough things. Yes. Those are memories, that you can drive off, that give you a platform to drive from. So to all the listeners out there, keep making memories. Don't be afraid to make memories.
Beautiful, my friend. This is epic. Love you, my friend.
Hey, if you like today's story, press like, leave a comment, subscribe, come back for more stories from founders and funders changing the face of sports, tech, entertainment, and fashion from Africa to the rest of the world. We look forward to seeing you again soon.